I felt like making this because this picture came up again for me, this meme, and it makes me laugh no end. And if you go to Reddit and see some of the posts people have written, they're really funny. They're really funny. And it's, to me, just the best fun. And that's obviously what I do with all of my work is play with this, or play with the octopus, as I like to think. The comments are funny because people kind of know it's true. There is this thing that lives inside you that is calling the shots, and it's kind of freaky, and then it's really difficult to live with. And so that's the nervous system. It's a picture of the nervous system. It's also leans towards language around the vagus nerve, which is part and parcel of the nervous system, and a big way that we control our bodies is it's the largest nerve in the body, and it runs all the way up through here, talks to all the eyes and ears, talks to all the organs. So there's a way in which it does literally do this. It branches out. It's got feelers everywhere. It's got feelers into all of the organs. It branches up into here, as I said, talks to the eyes and the ears and everything. So it kind of is working you. You're being worked by it in many ways. It's highly responsive. So it is you and it isn't you. What they've very recently found out is that everyone's is very different. So it has this sort of basic anatomy. But they've recently had 30 donations of full vagal system. And what they've seen is, A, it really looks like a tree. B, it's very hard to delineate sympathetic from parasympathetic. It's all kind of all together and all chats to each other. But also everyone's is very, very different. So you'll have like a tree or a rose bush or something, little branches coming off all sorts of places just for you. Your own particular way of being at an internal neurophysical level that helps you respond to the world. So it's really interesting. So it is this creature, and then it's you, it's yours, it works for you, it's highly responsive for you, and it mobilizes and contracts depending on what it thinks you need. A lot of us, a lot of the time, live in one that looks a bit like this, where it's a bit freaked out or it's had a bit of an electric shock. And when it's in this state, it's really hard to do quite a lot of things because it looks like that, it feels like that, but also because it's chatting to all of the other organs and these other cranial nerves that operate eyes, ears, head turning muscles, speech, tongue, huge connection from here to here with digestion, operations of that nature. So when we go into this state, everything constricts, everything gets really tight. All of the energy is designated to danger. So the eyes go rigid, everything contracts, breathing shifts, all sorts of things that we understand about being in a heightened state. And we can just walk around like this all of the time, especially if there's been a reason, and it can be a million different reasons, for the body to have experienced this very early. Because the nervous system grows for us. The head doesn't grow first. It grows much lower down in the belly, in the dantian. And it branches out and it stretches and it develops. And so it gets to know our body and our body gets to know it. So we're this sort of winding and like our own tree. And if it's learnt that early, then this is kind of how it predominantly operates. And I think very often it doesn't then know how to be in a more soft state or a more open state, because this is its primary baseline. This is what it understands. So a lot of us go around with this as our nervous system, and so we might look different on the outside, but our base camp, our way of knowing ourselves, is this very heightened state. And in that, you can lean towards ADHD or ADHD, however you say that, in this kind of a way, different presentations, where the system, the octopus, as I like to say, knows itself in this way. And then the question is, how do you teach it something new? Because when we do normal therapy, baseline is this. And so how do you teach people to relax past here when the whole system has learnt this as normal? Another presentation we can have is that the system immobilizes. So when it goes past flight, fight, and there's no other option for it except for it to collapse, like if a lion gets too close to a gazelle, it will simply fall over and look dead, and no choice, play dead, so that it doesn't blink or murmur and it doesn't excite the lion. And if the lion's not particularly hungry, it will go away, and then the gazelle can get up and bounce away. Our bodies do that too. So our nervous system is highly responsive to the environment. It will retract, and we can similarly go into that immobilized state where everything contracts and shuts down. Very heightened internal state, organs and everything are very high, but so much of the system has gone into a collapse because you don't want to have a lot of feeling if a lion's about to chew your leg off. And you don't want to be able to move, because if you could move, you might make a sound. If you could move, you might blink, which is enough to excite a lion. So our bodies have this way of completely shutting down and being very, very still in a heightened way, not a soft way. And if the body's learnt this early, for lots of really good reasons, similarly, it can be in this collapsed kind of a way. And that can be its baseline. So it stays here, or it learns to move out a little bit. But any kind of threat, any high stimulus, it'll go back to this. And then some people exist with this being fairly operational. And, if you remember what I was saying about, you've got this line, this vagus nerve with all these other cranial nerves going through here that do eyes, ears, head turning muscles, tongue, that it allows us to talk. It allows us to connect with the world, have really good peripheral vision, move our heads, have good digestion, have control of the body. When we're in a mobilized place and the nervous system has gone down here, it's very hard to operate the body. And so when we're looking at profound states where people are profoundly shut down and they're non-verbal, it doesn't mean there's nothing going on. It doesn't mean they're not thinking wild things. But it can mean that it does pretty well mean the nervous system is in a real state of shutdown as a general thing. And then there's a gradient where, it can be a little bit more or a little bit less. It can learn a bit, but its basic point is to come back to this. And so people find that with therapies and things, they can learn enough and they can learn a bit, but it doesn't quite change the underlying pattern that this is base camp for them. If it's happened early enough, if it's in utero or not long in utero, the body has made a decision to retract for safety, for whatever reason. That is what it knows, and it grows around it. And it becomes who you are, and it becomes what you know. So it's a very, 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 very interesting, private, and distinctly individual thing to teach that nervous system to change, to know more. If it's frozen, it thinks that's all there is. It can operate a little bit. But it isn't all that there is, because being frozen is only one aspect of what the nervous system can do and what it's designed to do. So when we're talking about these states, we're talking about the nervous system is top to toe. It's not just the brain. We're not really talking about the brain, except as in it's connected to the nervous system as part of a relay system, a bidirectional relay system for how the body knows itself and how the body keeps itself safe. And then consciousness. And it's all very intertwined, and it's all very intertwined with our sense of self. And so when people look at that meme that I showed you at the beginning and go, oh, that's what this is, whether it's this or the other presentation of being very freaky, or just this weird understanding that there's something inside you that's controlling you, it feels like that. Especially if your body's been born into one of these two presentations. And obviously I'm being simplistic here, but you have to be to make it make enough sense. If you've been born in one of these presentations, you really know that it's true, because it takes over all of the time. It will withdraw you. It will shut you down at a moment's notice when you really don't want it to. It means that you have less access to your thoughts or mobilizing your body or being able to eat what you want. It stops you connecting with people and being open, because it is closed and it's in a heightened state, whether it's here or in the freaky one, because it contracts the eyes and the ears. It contracts you. So it's very hard to interface with the world. So this becomes your interface, how you interface with everything else, how the information is processed, how it comes in and out. So when we're asking people to change, we're not changing their brain. We're not changing who they are. We're not trying to fix them. We're trying to play with the nervous system like it's a really clever octopus, because it's designed for more fluidity. It's designed for flexibility. It's designed to be able to move into all different states. And it gets a learnt pattern of knowing that you then have to live in and you're beholden to. And it doesn't mean that you're stupid. I think quite the reverse. I think it makes you really smart, because you have to be. It makes you very aware that you are more than your body, which is something people crave to understand. It can make you very aware of altered states, have higher order cosmic consciousness, have a deep religious connection. Because when you're in this state, you're actually physiologically more close to the state that you need for access to that stuff. So there can be this deep wisdom that comes from being in this more immobilized place. You can call it a dorsal vagal place. So we're not trying to fix it, but we are trying to teach it more. It will always know this. But it's very nice to see what else this octopus, this creature inside us, is allowed to do, so that we have more self-control, power over ourselves, self-mastery. So the work that I do is not about fixing people, and it's not about turning you into something that you should be, and it's not that there's anything wrong. It's that there's a limited state flexibility, state being stuck in one state, stuck in an immobilized state, stuck in a hyper state, or bouncing between the two. And the body not having enough flexibility to be able to mobilize where it wants, depending on the requirements of the outside world. So how we do this is we make friends with it. We're not zapping it with a machine. And see, this new study basically said we don't even know what we're doing when we're zapping the vagus nerve, and we're applying vagus nerve techniques and all the things that we do to make this thing behave, make it do what we want. How can you? It's so sophisticated and clever that just pushing into it doesn't work. And what we found is, because it's so complex and intertwined and individual, we can't even say we're doing this to the vagus nerve. We're promoting a parasympathetic response. You can give stimulus to a body, whether it's an acupressure point or things on the ears or a jolt, and it can have all sorts of reverberations that we can't say clinically it's just doing this, because that whole body is taking in and interpreting in its own way, in its own fashion. And physically, all the pathways are very, very, very linked and intertwined. So we have to get really, really clever at working with the person, and then with the curiosity of this system, and then what will work for that person, so that we're very, very kind. Because at base, that creature that lives inside you made a really good decision really early on to look after you and to protect you. And that's what it's doing every day. So while it looks like it's not helping you, while you can't close your pupils to go out in the sun, or make your face work properly, or digest food very well, or regulate yourself in company, or the 10,000 other things that make life really hard, it's trying to look after you, and that's all it knows. So what my work's doing is trying to teach it more, teach it to expand, teach it to come out of its cave like a little octopus and swim around and know itself more. Because essentially its internal map is small, and we're trying to extend its capacity. And so how we do it is by teaching the body how to go here. It's essentially what it doesn't know. This is a very open state of deep connection, where the body at its best is very, very open. All of these fronts, it's basically an antenna that we are at a nervous system level. It'll shrink, it'll get fried, it'll collapse, and it can open. And it's supposed to be responsive and be able to do all of these different states. It doesn't know this one. This is a place it doesn't know how to go on its map. It's like asking people to calm down, asking people to relax. It's like, well, I don't know how. My body learned this one the best, and it doesn't know this one. So it's this implied foundational capacity that I have a problem with the therapies that we use and we teach, is we assume people know how to do this, and if they could just get back to that, everything would be fine. And it's not. And then we have this ladder model with the polyvagal theory where, well, if I just get back up to ventral vagal, everything will be good. And there's this kind of way, again, with this implied assumption that the nervous system understands what that is, and it doesn't. And a lot of people don't know how to do this or go here. So what I'm teaching with my work isn't to get to the top of the ladder so that your eyes and ears even work properly and you can do your social engagement system properly, and then you can function in the world and be a normal person. I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in how we broaden your map so that you have facility to use all of these different states as you see fit. And in order to do that, we teach this. We teach the body to soften, and we invite the vagus nerve or the octopus or that inner creature living inside you that makes decisions for you. We teach it to come under your command, and we teach it by allowing it to soften and to know itself differently and to open to a new possibility and find its way, because it actually does have the whole map. There is nothing broken. It just doesn't know it because a long time ago it made a decision that this was the best way to be, and it didn't learn more. Because when you're immobilized and you're little, pre-conscious, you don't know how to get yourself out of it, and you don't know who you are. So the nervous system becomes you. And if it hasn't got much range, it can't go to all the other places in the map. But this is part of the map. So how we do it is not assume you can do this. We don't assume that you can go climb that ladder and be Captain Fantastic, because I think that's an insane thing to try and do. But what you can do is invite that system to soften, get into a vulnerable place, and find a place of newness. It requires going to the edge of the map, not so much psychologically. We're playing with the nervous system. We're not playing with stories and narrative and who you are and what's happened to you. They all matter. We're dealing with the nervous system being able to tolerate feeling something else at a sensory level via acupressure, by moving the feet on a ball, different things that are just enough sensory information to make it consider, soften, open, and try and move into a state that is more available than the other states can be. So we're essentially translating the nervous system. It has a very learnt pattern of what it thinks is real. It will control you because when you were little, you didn't know what you were doing, and so it decided it knows best. And we're teaching it that you know best. So you are very much front and center in the middle of this space. You are the captain of the ship. You are the captain of the entire system, but we do it through relationship with the body, through connection to the body, through submission to the body. Because like an octopus, it's super smart. It's super smart. An octopus can unscrew a jar and get itself out down the pipe and back to the sea. It can do that. It can spit at people it doesn't like. It's not going to do your bidding just because someone says, let's be nice now, and let's try and work through this. It'll do it if it thinks it's a good idea. So we invite the body to move into this state of higher order knowing. We invite the body to move into a place where it expands its map and then gets a central, coherent through line. That means it can be more operational and more under your control. Then, if we think about that creature living inside you and freaking out about it, we don't freak out about it, and we're not at its disposal and at its whim. It becomes a very, very high source of power for us that we get to use, which means we're aligned with it. I think it's sentient. I think we have a sentience inside us, and that you can't control it. You have to befriend it and then be it. It's fascinating. And so I see all sorts of people change from really, really challenging circumstances where when it's made that decision for all its good reasons, and so much is shut down that they can't talk, they can't digest food very well, all sorts of things are limited. When the system starts to open, those functions, because they stop being available due to the constriction of the system, they become available, and the person starts to loosen what they think they are and strengthen their capacity to use more of their mind and body, have better coordination. People who are really in hyper states where it's just frizzy all the time and very zippy learn to bring that down under their command and bring themselves into this state. Use that energy rather than it just being wild. So we're not coming from a paradigm that there's anything wrong. We're not coming from a paradigm of fixing, because the minute you try and fix an octopus, it's out of there. It doesn't care. It doesn't need fixing, but it can learn. It can learn more and it can feel more. It can feel into itself more, and it can become aligned with you, which is its job. It's about being embodied, and it's about being embodied in a way that is highly sophisticated, appreciative of the sophistication of the system, and appreciative of the high order intelligence of the soul living inside that body. It's not about how smart you are and how well you can move. As I said, my assumption is the more shut down you are, the more smart you are. And we look at the telepathy tapes and things happening there. It's quite obvious that there's a whole lot going on. And this is going on there too, in that way. The more shut down this can be happening, where people are very, very outward connected, and it's very much to do with a certain configuration of the body. However, it's at the expense of them being able to use the body in this way, in this 3D world that we're living in. And so even for them, they can maintain that consciousness, but bring the body back into alignment so they become one with it. And then what I see my work is all the time is bringing that beauty to the world, allowing the world to have that. So I'm at service to that in that sense. And in that, I'm always at service to the octopus, because it's the way that we get to know ourselves while we're here on this planet. It's the way we actually get to connect with our world. And I think it's a birthright to have greater control over it, to be able to use it as you wish. And I also appreciate that there's soul decisions why people choose to have a whole lot of other experiences. But when we can have this as part of the story, it can make life a whole lot more interesting and nice. So hopefully that's interesting. I just felt like saying it. If you want to know more, I have courses on my website, I'll put them below, which start to talk about all the stuff that's going on in the body, and then the exercises that I use to help ignite, warm up, retrain the system so that it can know more within the parameters of not fixing, etc., like I've said, but coming in with the right lilt. So there's a great deference and respect to the octopus, to that inner sentience inside you that knows best.